Hey, brother, welcome to day 37 as we are seeking to give light and not just generate heat in our political environment. We want to create light that points to Jesus and light that points to reasonableness and civic cooperation and all those good things that make a society work. Has this ever happened to you? It came up the other night in our couple small group. Have you ever been having an argument or a conflict with your spouse, and in the middle of the conflict, you forgot what you originally started arguing about? Isn't that true of us? We get tweaked, we get threatened, something gets taken from us, an inconvenience comes, some little paper cut comes, and we're often running to some kind of offense. How true that can be politically, and how we need to guard our spirit, that we not just fly off the handle and tell people or give people a piece of our mind when they don't deserve it, and it is a bad testimony for us. Well, Peter was a man who learned this lesson. Peter was a man who, he could bring the heat. He could bring the passion. He could bring the venom. Remember, he was the one who had a sword in the Garden of Gethsemane the night that Jesus was taken captive and cut off a man's ear. And Peter was the one who was rash and brash and often ready to give his opinion and step into the fray at a moment's notice. But as he matured in Christ, 30 years later, he writes an epistle called 1 Peter, and there's so much about him that has mellowed, that has settled. But the main thing is he hasn't given away his priorities. He hasn't stopped believing passionately about who he is and what he needs to do and his assignment for Christ. But he has recognized that there are ways that we can do this that can detract from the core testimony of who Jesus is. Here's what he says in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 12. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. Peter is saying there's a way that we can live so that even though we're passionate for Christ, we don't detract from who he is by our bad behavior. Then he goes on to say in chapter 3, verse 13, now who is there to harm you if you are zealous for what is good? Well, it's kind of a rhetorical question because he knows you may in fact suffer for doing good things. He says this in verse 14, but even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled, but in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect, having a good conscience, so that when you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame. For it is better to suffer for doing good, if that should be God's will, than for doing evil. Many times as we set about to do good, our behavior, our tone, our passionate emotions, our desire to get even with people, our vengeance can so overwhelm our goodness that we detract from the testimony of Jesus. And we also forget he's our companion. He's the one empowering us. So today, as we think about our political world, there are a host of news stories about which we could argue, get passionate, things we could really get excited about. But let's remember, it's how we conduct ourselves in the midst of that. It's not weakening our argument, it's strengthening our argument when we do it with grace, when we do it in Christ's likeness. So today, think about something where you want to bring the heat, and remember how you behave and bring the light to that conversation or to that particular argument even that you're having, but bring it so that God is honored and Jesus Christ is exalted. God bless you.